The games are piling up. There's not enough space. It's time for things to go. Welcome to Keep or Sell. This is the series on the channel where I talk about games that are coming and going, but I'm also going to be throwing in a little bit of a update on the channel. My name is Brian. If you're new here, welcome to Game Brigade. I'm just going to make some room. I actually had just finished taking some photos of Marvel Zombies. That's why I had them all lined up like that, because I plan on potentially listing this. I'm still not quite sure yet on my thoughts. I feel like it's time for it to go. I obviously haven't even opened my copy here, but I talked about this in the games that I'm ready to let them go. Marvel Zombies is one that I played another friend of mine's copy, and it was okay, but I don't think it's for me. I don't know if I necessarily need to own it. But then there's also that little bit of FOMO creeping in, telling you, oh, you still need this game. I like to also call that like my drunk monkey, where you have a drunk monkey in your shoulder who just gives you really bad advice. That's kind of what happens here all the time. And sometimes you have to learn how to listen to that drunk monkey. So anyways, welcome to Keep or Sell. This is the channel, the series on the channel where we do a lot of the board game collection updates. We talk about games that have come and gone, things that are coming in, and I want to talk about the games that have left the collection in January. So we just recently talked about selling games, letting things go, and we did do that. I sold some games. So I got a list here of the games that I listed, and I will go over what I sold. And I'll probably also tell you what I sold them for. Maybe this will help you guys if you're interested in potentially what I'm selling for. Now, when I sell games, I've been asked by people in the community to do a video on how I sell games. But as a disclaimer, I don't sell games to make a profit. That's not like what I'm here for. Usually, I have to buy games for the channel so that I can talk about them for my audience and experience them. And it's just part of the lifestyle that I've chosen here for the channel, which means I also have to sell games. And a lot of times I either try to make back what I spent or I take a little bit of a hit. It's more valuable to me to get games out the door and out of my house so that I can keep doing what I'm doing than to sit on them forever to get the best dollar for it. There are people who want the maximum dollar, what they believe their game is worth, and they're willing to sit there for 6 months. That's totally okay. I'm not gonna, judge someone for their selling habits. But for me, if there's a price here on this list that you guys are like, that's really low, it's what I did to get the games out of my space that I'm no longer pursuing or wanting to be, in my collection. So for the games that I had on the market, some of them I listed online. Some of them I took to a local store to sell in a community swap. We'll talk about that. We had Hoplomachus Remastered, Evolution Climate, Dead of Winter, the base game, Bootleggers, it's an old game, Metro, this is the 1809 or something like that, Paris edition, Deep State, Tortuga 2199, Legends Untold, Last Banquet, Destinies, the Venus Deluxe, it's a Lacerda game, Darwin's Journey, and Lords of Ragnarok. So these are all the games that I decided I was ready to get rid of, either have finished with them or I'm no longer interested in covering them or whatever it may be. So Hoplomachus Remastered from Chip Theory Games. I had both Hoplomachus Victorum and Hoplomachus Remastered on my potential cull list. I have played Remastered. There's a loud noise. I'm not sure what that was. I have no idea what that loud noise was. Just text my wife, make sure everything's okay. Okay, everything's good. What was that?
Dropped the battery.
You dropped the battery? Okay.
On the counter.
All right, that was sounding really loud. Anyways, Hoplomachus Remastered, I have played several times. We brought it out. It's a skirmish game where you are going to choose one of the factions, like the Amazonians or the Greeks or something like that. I can't remember all of them. And then you are going to have units that have abilities and skills, and you're going to have to maneuver around a hex-based territories and defeat your opponents. And it was a fun little puzzle, and that's what, I always hate saying puzzle, but they are puzzles because you have to figure out the sequence of plays to defeat your opponent. And I didn't mind it. I would give it like a 6.8 in my rating scales. But most of my friends that we played with just were flat on it. They just didn't care. They weren't interested in it. And when the last Kickstarter that was launched, or GameFound event, for Chip Theory's kind of fix for remastered as well as fix for Hoplomachus, I didn't back it. I was right there on the precipice of backing it, and I said, this is a game that I rate at a lower than 7. 7's like a really big breakpoint for me, and I don't necessarily think it's worth investing into. So at that point, I decided both games were on the chopping block, Victorum and Remastered, but I've yet to actually play Victorum. It's a solo game. When I play solo games, I tend to lean to things that I know. It's just because it's easier for me. So I haven't played it yet. Remastered I had, and I said, okay, it's time to let go of Remastered. So that was listed, and it did sell, and I sold it for $110 at the game sale. After that, we had Evolution Climate. Evolution Climate's a game I picked up in a collection swap, where I bought someone's entire collection, and I valued it. At the time when you calculated how much I spent on the entire collection box, it was about $10 about every game. I've actually calculated every game about $10, except for the throwaway games. I have played a lot of evolution systems, and they don't seem to be much different from play a species, make sure the species is getting fed, and put different types of traits on the species to protect them from predators and other animals, and that's about it. They've all had the similar DNA, and it's not a system that I generally love, and we have versions of it in the collection already that are more children friendly, that kind of have like goofier animals and whatnot, from not Bad Crow Games, it's Crow D Games. And so I figured, you know what, we no longer need Evolution. So I had it listed at $20, and I had a bottom price of that for $17. Didn't get sold. So that's Evolution Climate, didn't get sold. After that, we had Dead of Winter. Dead of Winter is the zombie apocalypse game where players are going to be huddled into a compound in the middle of winter, and you're going to have to go out and get supplies and defend yourself from zombies who are going to be attempting to break into your compound or overrunning the locations throughout the map. There's also a hidden trader mechanic where someone could potentially be a trader, because as you add supplies to the communal supply where we all have food and whatnot coming in, a trader could potentially put something that's not for the group and sabotage the operation. I didn't find it as good as I wanted it to do. I'm a huge zombie fan. I still love zombies. I don't think it's an overplayed for me, but I didn't care for it. And we played Who Goes There this last month, and very similar feeling. And it has a trader mechanic as well, obviously, because it's the Thing IP. And I figured, if I'm going to have either one, I'd rather have Who Goes There over Dead of Winter for a myriad of reasons. One, I thought the gameplay was better, but it's also a harder to get game and no longer in print. So Dead of Winter is going to always be available, so I decided to sell that, and it did sell at $20. After that, we had Bootleggers. Part of that collection purchase that I bought has sat on my shelf forever. I've held on to it because people in the comments when I posted the video of I bought someone's collection, we're like, that's a great game, you should hold on to it. So I've been holding on to it, but it's an old game. It looks like some sort of Prohibition era alcohol movement game. Never played it. Decided, it's time to go. I listed it for $15, had a bottom price of $10, didn't sell. Metro, that's the Paris game. It looks like some sort of tile laying game where you're trying to connect. I didn't play it, again, from that collection sale. I had it for $5. It sold for $5. Deep State. This is from the company I just mentioned, Crow D. It's one of the first reviews I did on the channel where I reviewed Deep State, and Deep State was enjoyable. I enjoyed the game, but it doesn't get to the table as much because I think it's the placement of its mechanics versus relearning it means I don't want to bring it back out all the time. So I probably put it like a 6.7 now, 6.8 in terms of where I'd place it. And so I tried to sell that, had it for $20. Bottom price was $15. And when I say bottom price, the way the game sale works is that you drop your stuff off on Saturday, and it goes from Saturday to Sunday. You pick your stuff up on Monday. So I'll have Saturday pricing, this price, Sunday pricing, this price. So if I say top price, bottom price, I would literally write on the receipt or on the thing that tells you my pricing. I would say on Saturday, this price, Sunday, this price. That way, if someone comes on Sunday or they're incentivized to wait, they can get it cheaper. That's because I kind of think about my bottom dollar. And I'll kind of talk about that when I do film my video about how I sell board games to kind of give you guys my mindset. But that's like the least amount I want to take at that time. So Deep State did not sell, and I think it's probably because it's not a well-known game. It is available on Amazon for like $35 new. So maybe people are just like, it's not enough a discount at 20. But I'm not sure I want to give it away yet at 15. I don't know. We'll see. Tortuga, $21.99. This is from, I think it's from Gray Fox Games. It's a Kickstarter. I have not opened it yet. I bought it from my local game store. They were running a sale. They were buying like a buy 3, get 1 free. So I was purchasing some games, and I figured, you know what, I'll just pick that up for free because it's part of the sale. So technically, you get 25% off is the idea, I think, about that. And have never opened it. My friend, Matt, we talked about naming names in the video. So Matt, he also picked up Tortuga. We played his copy first, and it's, if I remember right, it's a deck building game where you're moving around to different locations on this kind of abstract map, and you're trying to fight pirates or you're trying to gather cards. And it was an okay game, but it wasn't anything that's like, if I'm going to play this game, this type of game, there are better deck building games that have more interesting mechanics like Moonrakers or Dune Imperium that I would rather go to. So Tortuga seemed like, okay, I don't need to open my copy. I'll try to sell it. I bought it for 61 was what the list price was. I tried to sell it at 40 with a bottom price of 35, still new in seal, didn't sell. So we're probably gonna have to adjust the price on that one, maybe down to 35. We'll see what happens on that one. Next, we had Legends Untold. I talked about this one. It's a small box game. It's a low fantasy game with where you are going to be basically doing a D&D-like experience, but low fantasy. So your characters are going to be like wearing cloth and robes, and that's about it. You have sticks and like metal pokers, like very, very basic items. Like I think the most advanced tech is probably the bow. And it was fine. It was a fun little dungeon where you're actually moving around different tiles and you're trying to solve puzzles and different things going on. It was an interesting little game in a small box profile. I enjoyed it for what it was. We played several campaigns of it, but it's no longer hitting the table. So I decided to sell that one, and it was at 15, lowest price 13, didn't sell. Next, we had Last Banquet. Can't tell you much about this one. Didn't even look at it. Looked like some sort of party game. I had it for $5. Bottom price at $3. It sold. I think it sold for $3. So that's that. Destinies. This is the Lucky Duck game where you just are trying to fulfill your destiny by doing a bunch of exploration, trying to solve puzzles and gather different items. Very, very popular game. At least it was several years ago. I feel like it's inundated and flooded the market. I had this one. It's basically brand new. I had it for $20. Lowest price $17. Didn't sell. So that was interesting. Vinos Deluxe Lacerda. I purchased that from a store several years ago. We never actually got to play it, but I bought it at $89 and they had like a 20% discount off of that. So I roughly probably paid after taxes like 75, 77, something like that. And it's been sitting in my collection for a long time. I've talked about this on the channel before, where we bought it because we wanted to play a game that was like viticulture, but without having to buy viticulture, because we had a friend in the collection who in their collection owned viticulture. I don't like cross purchasing if we can help it. So we bought Vinos, never got it to the table, and I realized, you know what, it's time for it to go. I had it at 70 flat, no bottom price. It sold at 70. Next, we had Darwin's Journey. We had this one. I listed this online on both my Discord as well as Facebook Marketplace and several of the buy-sell trade groups for board gaming. I listed it at 125, had a million people message me for this one immediately, and we sold it at 125. So I had several friends tell me you probably undersold it. I felt comfortable with that price. I purchased it for 89 euros plus. That's with, I believe, the shipping cost. I can't remember exactly. So it wasn't like I lost money. In fact, I probably made a little bit in terms of the overall costs, but it was a game that I needed to get out of my collection. I played it. I didn't really love it, and I had a new sealed copy that was mine. I figured, you know what, let's just get it out right now. And I think $125 was a fair price. It got it out the door quickly. The last game we had on the collection sale this month was Lords of Ragnarok. This was the base game with the Sun Drop, as well as the stretch goal box, obviously, with Sun Drop, and the terrain box Sun Drop. Lords of Ragnarok is a game that was good. I enjoyed it, but it had problems that I just couldn't get over, and it was hard to get my group wanting to play it based on the way it works. And the reason that they didn't like it, and I agree with them, is that there are ways to win the game. You have territory control, but when we usually play games like that, we're playing with 4 or 5 people. Nearly impossible with that many people to do a territory control. The next thing is temple control. You have to build or control so many temples that are scattered across the map. We've gotten close to doing that. I don't think we ever had anyone actually do that. Next was by defeating Loki. I will talk about why that never happens. And the final thing is the Ragnarok triggers, and we have to all go into the center, and whoever controls the most amount of territory around Yggdrasil in the center is the winner. The problem we had with that game is if we had a player who went for, say, Loki kill, you gotta build up your character to get them strong enough to do the monster fights. And one of the things that triggers Ragnarok is defeating 2 monsters, which is what you have to do to even be able to fight Loki. And what ends up happening is there are several triggers that can trigger Ragnarok. Once, I think, like 3 or 4 of those trigger, then Ragnarok triggers and everyone has to go to Yggdrasil, and you have a turn to control as much territory as you can. The problem then is if a player's trying to go after a certain type of mechanic win, such as go for Loki, and that triggers Ragnarok, which it seemed like it always would happen based off other things because the amount of the game being played, it just didn't feel like these were conditions that could actually be done, and it always just ended up being a rush to the center, which was not something I enjoyed. I did not like this rushing to the center. So I think there was some things about Ragnarok that I enjoyed. I still enjoy area control, dudes on a map games. I had fun with it, but it was enough that I was like, you know what? There's other games that are in this niche that probably are better for me and my group, so we'll go ahead and sell Ragnarok. It's same reason as to why I sold Ankh. I think Ankh is a reasonably good game, but it's just not for me in my collection. So that's it in terms of the games that we sold. We talked about why we sold them. We gave you the price. Hopefully that's helpful for you guys if you're trying to consider potentially selling games. Next, we're going to be talking about, some big games, not on the video, but just in my brain, talk about getting rid of this kind of stuff. These are much harder to sell because obviously there's a lot more invested in this, and I have to make the decision how much hit do I want to take to potentially moving it, and also someone's going to have to pay for the shipping. It's obviously going to be a headache. From that, I want to go to the games that I played this month and just give you kind of rundown some of the games that I played this month that were some of my favorites. And if you are interested, I should have mentioned this way earlier in the video, I'm going to do my movie reviews of the movies that we watched in January, because we watched 4 banger movies. I want to talk about them a little bit. You're not needing to stay for that portion as well. So after my board games that I played this month, we can wrap it up, and basically, you can end the video. But people who cared about the movies I watched, you guys can stay till the end. So starting off the month of January, we had some more Blood on the Clock Tower. Played 2 games of that. Absolutely loved that game. Banger game. What can I say? Blood on the Clock Tower is one of my favorite games of all time, if not my favorite game of all time. Oathsworn Into the Deepwood. I continued that campaign. We are actually on the final chapter. Finally, we're on chapter 21. So we'll be finishing that in the month of February. Very, very excited for that, but I'm also a little sad. I played Sorcerer and Mythic Mischief with my friend Jed, and Sorcerer was a little interesting card game where you pick different types of decks that are pre-built, but you're going to combine like this deck and this deck and this deck, build them together to build your deck, which is going to change because each little deck has their own little micro theme to it, so it's going to change how your deck plays and the things it does, which is kind of cool. And then you're going to go ahead and play your cards out, do different activities, and you fight on different locations. It was a fine game. I can't remember if there was some dice rolling. I feel like there was dice rolling in it, but I can't remember now off the top of my head. And there was something about it that was just like holding it back from being like a really, really good game. We played Mythic Mischief because Jed wanted to know if he liked it, and he does. And I think he actually played it with his wife now as well. We don't need to go over every single game. Let's just about the games that were really good. Clash of Cultures, played that again. Played 2 games of Clash of Cultures actually on the 21st and the 25th. Really, really love Clash of Cultures. One of my favorite Civilization games. We'll talk about that more when we do my top 50. We played Expeditions, which is down here. We have 2 games of Expeditions. We played some more Blood on the Clock Tower on the 31st, and we ended up with some Oathsworn and Deadly Downagers, which is a small box games I'll probably talk about in the future. So those are the games. Expeditions, I will hope to have a review filmed this week, hopefully go live next week. In terms of video content that is currently released, I am in the process of my top 50 games of all time for 2023. So that's basically taking every game that I've played up to December of 2023. What are my top 50 games? Going forward, it will probably be my top 100 so that you guys can get an idea of that and the portions. Now, I'll probably talk about this in the next section that I record for that. But I realized there were some key games that I didn't add to that list, and it really drives me nuts. So I'm looking forward to the revised edition, which will be coming up in December of 2024. So I'm not going to tell you what games I missed, but I've got them locked. We've already wrote them down, added them to the list. My wife was like, well, why don't you just modify your list now? I'm like, I don't want to do that because it just doesn't feel, because I feel like it would shift everything. So we're going to keep the list that I have now, but there's definitely some stuff that should have been added that got omitted, and mostly because I forgot to register them in my Board Game Geek collection, which is what PubMeeple pulls when you're forming those lists, and that was just my fault because I just never added them. So with that, we are going to be shifting towards the movies that I watched. We watched 4 movies this year, or last month. My wife and I have basically kind of done every Friday night we've been watching a movie. We are currently going through thriller movies. We talked about this on the channel already, that I'm trying to go through thrillers. Thrillers are some of my favorite types of content to watch, and I'm very, very excited to finally get to watch some of these ones we haven't watched. Give me 1 second. I just want to check something. Okay, we got it. Okay, so we got the list pulled up now. So the first movie we watched is, and I will not go through spoilers. First off, because these are thriller movies and they usually have some sort of interesting ending or twists or whatever, you know how thrillers work. I will not cover the ending or anything that's spoilery in my opinion. I'm just going to talk about my thoughts on the process of the movie or what we liked about it. So the first movie we watched was a Korean film called Parasite. And the movie concept is about a family who's kind of down on their luck and just having a rough time, not getting very much money. And a college friend is speaking to his one of the children in the family, telling that he is leaving for the United States or something, and he would like him to take over the English tutoring of his family. So the kid is going to take over tutoring English to this Korean family that's very affluent and wealthy. And the movie kind of goes over the hijinks and the things that happen from this new job. And it's a very interesting movie. I was kind of concerned. It's been a long time since I watched a foreign film. I think the last show I watched was actually Squid Games. And you forget how easily, when you're watching a subtitled movie, that you just get into the flow of reading the subtitles. First off, you're like, oh, I wish there was a dub version. But then you just, within like maybe 3 or 4 minutes, you forget you're reading subtitles and you just are into the movie. Parasite was a very, very good movie. Different from a lot of the thrillers that I've seen in the past in terms of the things that occurred in the movie, but I would highly recommend you watch it. I was able to watch it with a subscription service. I'm not sure which one. I have Paramount Plus, Peacock, and Netflix, so I think it was on one of those, I believe. But yeah, I highly recommend you watch it. I don't want to spoil anything, so I don't want to talk about why or what happens, because obviously that ruins the idea. It makes talking about thriller movies very difficult. The next movie we watched was The Gift, and I think I can't remember if there was anyone of note that was an actor in this movie. I honestly can't remember. But this movie, the premise of this movie is about a very successful man and his wife have moved into a new home in California. And while they're out shopping for some decor or furniture, he runs into an old high school acquaintance. And he doesn't necessarily remember who he was at the time, but the acquaintance says, yes, remember me from high school. And the acquaintance hears the address because the guy's ordering some furniture or something for delivery. He hears the address. So he drops off a gift at the property, which was just a housewarming gift. And he just decides that he's going to drop by unannounced all the time and makes the husband feel uncomfortable, makes the wife feel uncomfortable. And obviously there becomes a are we being stalked kind of situation occurring in this family, and things happening. You're not sure, is it truly something happening, or is it the guy that you met from high school who also left a note saying, I'm willing to let bygones be bygones, which is like, what is he talking about? The husband's like, I don't know what he's talking about. So there's obviously something going on in the background. It was a really, really interesting movie. The twists or whatever are there, of course, because every thriller is going to have some sort of twist to it. It was a decent movie. I would probably not necessarily need to watch it again, though, so just take that into account. I don't think I would need to watch it again. Sometimes people like to watch thrillers multiple times so they can see things they might have missed. Not one that I felt like I needed to go back and rewatch it again. I felt like it was a pretty straightforward movie, but it was an interesting premise, and I'm glad I watched it. Next, we watched Insomnia, and this has Robin Williams, and it has Insomnia. God, you guys are gonna be like, how do you not remember his name? Al Pacino, right? Yeah, I haven't even gotten there yet, but it's Al Pacino. Has Al Pacino, okay? And the premise of Insomnia is, first off, I wish I didn't tell you Robin Williams was in the movie, because I wish that was not even announced in the title thing. It's kind of like when you're watching like Interstellar and a certain character shows up like really late in the movie and it's a famous character. You're like, whoa, I didn't know he was in this movie. It kind of shocks you. But right in the beginning when they're doing the Insomnia and Al Pacino, Robin Williams, they tell you right off the bat, which kind of stinks. But the premise of this movie is there was a murder that happens in a small Alaskan town, and Al Pacino and his partner are detectives from Los Angeles, and they've been sent to this small town to help with the investigation because the small town doesn't have the resources to do a murder investigation like this. So he goes up there, and it turns out when they land, it's really bright out, but there's not a lot of people in town. Turns out it's like 10 p.m. at night, and it's the time of year in Alaska where the sun does not go down. And Al Pacino has a hard time sleeping as he's going through this investigation. And so he starts going through this like kind of mental degradation as he's trying to go through solving this case. This movie, hold on one second, I just want to make sure. Yeah, is a Christopher Nolan movie. If you know Christopher Nolan, we wanted to watch this because we just watched Memento, which was incredible, and I really enjoy Christopher Nolan's movies. So this is a Christopher Nolan movie, probably one of his most underrated films. I think this was brilliantly shot. I think it was a beautiful movie, kind of an interesting story. I thought it was still kind of straightforward in a ways, but I highly recommend people watching this. One, because Robin Williams is an incredible actor. Two, Al Pacino was an incredible actor. Very much top tier performances by both people. Very, very good. And I was glad to have seen it. And it's honestly a movie I never even heard of. I was like, what? When did this come out? How did I not know about this? But yeah. And the final movie we watched was American Psycho. Hold on one second. I feel like I should just have notes with all this right in front of me. So let me just pull this down. Okay, American Psycho. Now, this stars Christian Bale of Batman fame. And I believe this might have been one of his first movies. If not his first movie, but like one of his earliest films. And I have heard a lot about American Psycho. Like, it's a movie that is parodied all the time. You see memes of it all the time. There's there's SNL skits and whatnot. Like, you see this stuff all the time. It's part of American pop culture. But I've never actually seen the movie. I'm not a big horror fan. I don't really care for slasher flicks or anything like that. And that's kind of what I assumed this movie was. So I went into it with, kind of interesting thoughts, but I wanted to give it a shot. And first off, really brilliant movie. Like a true classic. I think Christian Bale's performance was spot on. The way they are presenting this world is very interesting. And the fact that after the film, you're still asking yourself questions like, what happened? Like, what was happening? I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't seen it, obviously, but it's like, this was a 20-year-old movie. You should probably watch it. But if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. I will say, though, through the most of the movie, I was like looking at my wife. I'm like, this is a comedy, right? Like, this is a pure satire comedy. You can't take this film too serious. And I think that's the point. I think you're not meant to take the film too serious. It still has interesting points and plots and things happening, but it's really still a joke. Like, there's a famous scene of them talking about their business cards and the way that Christian Bale's character, Bateman, is reacting to seeing people's business cards and how he just gets so flustered over their alignment and their font choice, and the ivory choice of the card is just so funny, and how these guys who make tons of money but literally do nothing at work other than do stupid puzzles on their newspapers, keep crossword puzzles, and doodle in their pagers, and they just go out to lunch and then complain about where they're going to get reservations. Like, these guys do nothing, and it's just like the world of that time was just an interesting thing. It's a great movie. So if you haven't seen any of those movies, I highly recommend it. Probably in my order, I think American Psycho was probably one of the better ones. Insomnia was a better one. They're all good. It's hard to rank those three. I put Gift at the end, but it's like you're stacked up against like 3 incredible films that I think people should watch. So that's that. I'm going to wrap it up now. I thank you guys for watching the show. I do want to do a quick shout out to my first YouTube partner member. So someone, I've been really considering moving my Patreon to YouTube. One of the things we do here on YouTube, whenever I have a new video that's going to be going live, I publish it first to my community members. But I haven't had any, but I still would do it anyways. But now David Martin is my first member. So thank you for joining the community here on the YouTube side. I really appreciate that. Thank you, buddy. And hopefully you watch the entire video. I meant to do this at the beginning of the video. I just got too wrapped up with the Marvel Zombies covering my face. So that's it. Anyways, my name is Brian. I will talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.